Hello and welcome to What's Your Story? Today's guest is Lisa Gioia Akers, and we're so excited to have her here because she's a historian and she's an author and she's a very interesting person. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you very much for having me, Judy.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you here. I want to know so much more about you because I don't know as much as I feel like I should know, because you're just so interesting. You do all these oral history profiles of people, and I didn't even know what an oral history profile was until I asked you. And so why don't you tell our audience what it is?
Well, I'm surprised because What's Your Story is exactly what I do when I meet people and ask them, what is your story? What I do is personal, business, and organizational histories. And the personal histories is I will meet an individual. Sometimes it's a family that would like to have an elderly person or a member of their family, their story, because it's been so interesting. So I will sit with them over a period of maybe a couple of sessions, depending on what the topic is or what it is that we are looking to gather. I will sit with them, find out about their life story, and it's kind of exactly what you're doing, I think.
Well, I think it's so exciting because when I look back on my mother, when she was elderly, I used to take her a tape recorder and say, "Mother, please just tape your stories." But she wouldn't do it because she just felt self-conscious sitting there by herself, doing it and dealing with the tape recorder. I think older people are intimidated with technology too. And I think this would have been such a great thing because she would have had you showing an interest in what she did, and she could have told her story, and then I would have it today.
In her voice, too, which is so special. So what we do is we audio tape and videotape them. What I found in my experience is people will say, "I don't know why you want to talk to me. I don't have anything exciting or interesting to say." And when we first begin the oral history, you'll see them kind of sitting back, very rigid. As you begin to talk to them, you ask them a question, they answer, you show interest, you can see them relaxing into their life story, and they will share with you some amazing nuggets about the era that they lived in, some of the events that took place, how they lived through some of the challenges. It's one of the most rewarding careers I've ever had.
Oh, I would think so.
Yes.
I would think that would be so exciting. And all the different people you would meet, because everyone has a story. And it's fascinating when you hear some of these stories that people don't think it's extraordinary. They think it's just like my everyday life, and yet you're going, wow.
Well, Judy, what I found out is that we all can contribute to the human experience. And I think, even especially in times like today, it makes us connected, shows our connection, makes us more tolerant, and makes us care about the individual. Maybe not the masses, but that individual. Yes. Everybody's got an important story to contribute.
Yes. Now, how long have you lived in Las Vegas?
I came to Las Vegas in 1987, and I still haven't gotten used to the desert climate. I am from a small town in western New York, a little town between Buffalo and Rochester. The climate there is so much different from this side of the country. We have snow, we have high humidity, and I do sometimes miss that. And in fact,
how can you miss that?
I did sometimes miss it. In fact, when I graduated from UNLV in '97 with my bachelor's degree, my husband, a Southern California boy, took me and our daughters to Western New York. The first winter, it was like, oh, I just love the winter. It's so beautiful, the snow. By the third winter, I said, take me back to Las Vegas. Take me back.
Yeah.
And now I currently reside mostly in Southern Oregon, which is more temperate. We still get the four seasons. However, it's not as harsh as the winters in New York, and the humidity is very low.
Yeah. So, but you're here as well.
Yes, we have a home down here in Las Vegas, so I'm here quite often.
Now, you wrote a book called Showgirls of Las Vegas.
I did.
What prompted you to write that book?
So I had just recently graduated from UNLV, and I had been getting training as an oral historian. I was teaching at the College of Southern Nevada, and it was actually the publishing company that found my name or what I did, and they contacted me. And they wanted to know if I would be interested in doing a topic of local history. And I came up with Showgirls of Las Vegas. They were very interested. At the time, I was working with an organization very closely called the Las Vegas Media Group. That was an organization comprised of movers and shakers from the early days of Las Vegas, newspaper people, entertainers, including many former showgirls. And so it was easy for me to be able to find. And photographers. So I had easy access to a lot of photographs from the photographers, newspaper articles, the archives at UNLV was extremely useful for me.
Wow.
And so it was so much fun to do. And I just thought a book like that would be fun. And it seems to have taken off pretty good.
That's great. That's absolutely fabulous. Now, what other oral history projects have you done?
So here in Southern Nevada, I was so fortunate to be working very closely with two women that became my mentors. The first was Marlene Adrian, who is the president of an organization called Women of Diversity.
Yes.
She videotaped and highlighted the contributions of women throughout Nevada, and I was able to learn videography and interviewing and meeting some incredible women. Many of them are no longer with us. And so I worked with Marlene, and I also was under the tutelage of Clay T. White, who is the director of the Oral History Research Center at UNLV. During my time at UNLV and working with Clay T, I was able to do All That Jazz, which was interviewing many members of their music industry in the early days. I did Heart to Heart, which also I was able to interview doctors from early Las Vegas, and some of the fascinating ones were the females who tried to get their niche as doctors here in Southern Nevada.
Yeah.
And another very interesting one, and that I'm very proud of, is that I was hired by the Bureau of Land Management, one of several people, to do, I did the history portion of Mount Charleston. So for the visitor center, where they have that new visitor, it's not so new anymore, but they have a history portion. And so I was very integral in getting that accomplished, and interviewing, again, people that are no longer with us that helped build Mount Charleston and Kyle Canyon. So
that's really fascinating. You know, it's such a fascinating city, and not just city, but the county and all the surrounding areas as well. People very often say to some of us who've lived here a long time, well, you know, there's just nothing to do in Vegas. We moved here and there's nothing to do. And I'm always just like, well, what do you mean there's nothing to do? There's so much to do. And Mount Charleston is one of those things. It's 30 minutes outside of town, and we have snow and skiing, and people don't believe that about the desert.
Well, so here's a funny story about Mount Charleston. When I was getting married to my second husband, John, who I'm currently married to still, I did not want Las Vegas on my wedding certificate for some reason. I just thought no. So we got married at the lodge in Mount Charleston, and I understand it's recently burned down.
Yes, it did.
Yes, so we had our wedding up in Mount Charleston.
Well, that's a wonderful place to have a wedding anyway.
It's
because of the
gorgeous.
huge pine trees and the snow, and what a wonderful place, and wonderful memories. Yeah, we used to go to the lodge. I loved it.
We'd go on our anniversary several times too.
Yeah, it's a special place.
Yep.
There's so much here. So what are your future projects?
So I am continuing doing oral histories, business histories, organizational. One of the neat ones that I did recently was interviewing inmates incarcerated at Pelican Bay State Prison.
Where's that?
That's in Northern California. And it's the place where a lot of prisoners, the hardcore prisoners, go. It was the most fascinating experience, and I did it for an organization that does programs not to rehabilitate prisoners or the inmates, but to give them something to go inside of themselves and to understand themselves a little better. That organization is called Getting Out by Going In. And so they hired me to interview several of the incarcerated men there. And it was the most fascinating, not only just being inside of a state prison like that, but to meet these individuals who many of them are serving life sentences. So that's one of the projects that I did recently. Most currently, I'm working on a memoir, so it'll be my second book if I can get it published. And I just figured after doing so many other people's life stories, I needed to share mine.
Tell us a little bit about yours.
Well, my memoir is based on, I had early parental loss. I was an infant when my parents died.
Both parents?
Both parents.
Ooh.
Within a few short days of each other. And as I was growing up, luckily I was raised with my 3 older brothers in my maternal grandmother's home. But we were never really told the story. Plus, I thought she was my mother. And so it was a long time before I realized she's not my mother, and there's a story here. But as a little girl, you don't pay attention. But at some point in time, I needed to know more. And when I began doing research, I was in my late teens when I started, and I haven't quit yet. Uncovering that story helped me to understand that life stories are not always pat. There's always more to the story.
Yes.
And so that really it was like opening up Pandora's box, and I haven't been able to close it yet. So my book is basically about learning about my parents' lives, their tragic deaths, my self-discovery on how I navigated my own life based on that kind of history that I uncovered.
Isn't it interesting what brings us to what we end up doing?
Well, I find it interesting that my first career was animals always played an integral part of my life when I was a little girl. They were my companions. They were who I could talk to and whatever. So my first degree and my first working career was working with exotic animals. I went to college in Southern California. That's what took me from New York State to the West Coast. My second degree is anthropology and archaeology, digging up history, which I didn't plan on it that way.
Yeah.
And then my master's degree is as a historian, and that's where I learned how to do the oral histories.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's fascinating what brings us to where we are.
Exactly.
Now, why do you think documenting life histories is important?
As I said, I think we all have important stories. You know, for a long time, I've been writing since I was a teenager, and I think I did it just for myself. It was therapeutic for me. And when I thought about writing a book, or when people would say to me, you should write a book, I would say, my story is not any, more important than anybody else's. Everybody has something to contribute. Everybody has a story to tell, not only for the benefit of others, but for themselves. As I'm writing my book, I'm remembering things.
Oh, yes.
I'm touching base with certain things of my past. It's a healing process as well. But on a more important level, I really think it's important for all of us to know the workings of other people, what their experience was, what made them who they are, what made them come to the opinions and conclusions that they do. I think it really will help maybe bring us all together, I'm hoping.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. If I could be in some way helpful in that, I would love to be a part of it.
Yeah. I love the idea. I teach a memoir writing course, and I hadn't thought about doing it this way. This is an absolutely fabulous idea, because my course is it's more of a healing course, because the people get together in the class, and then they write during the week, and then they come to the class, and then they share their stories and what they've written. And it's amazing what you find out about each other.
Exactly.
And it's amazing what so many people have gone through. You see someone and they look so together, and you think, oh, they've just got it made. They've just always had everything made. And then you hear their story and you're like, oh my goodness, they lived through that?
When I was interviewing the inmates at the state prison, they talked about what the experience of that getting out by going in program meant to them. What it did is it made them examine themselves, getting inside themselves. Instead of blaming out there, it made them discover how they ticked, what made them tick, what made them perhaps do some of the things that they did. What a healing, freeing experience.
Can you think of something that someone told you in one of these experiences that you just were like totally blown away by it?
Well, I have to admit, I'm a very outgoing person who just wants to embrace everybody. And as I was sitting across the table from some of these incarcerated men, I was just like, oh, they're not so bad. They're somebody that I could just take home, or they're rehabilitated. And I had to constantly tell myself, don't give out too much of my own information, because even the stories that they're telling, and even though they seem to be remorseful, I had to be really careful.
Yes.
So some of those stories were very impactful for me. Wow. Let's go to the showgirls. I loved interviewing so many of the showgirls. And some of the things that they told me is that when they were standing at the very top of a staircase in their costume and their regalia, and they were getting ready to walk down the stairs, they were thinking, okay, when I get off work, I'm going to have to go to the grocery store, I have to drop off the dry cleaning. So those kind of things, you just realize that iconic person is a real human being with real human experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as gorgeous as they are, they still think the same things the rest of us do.
Exactly.
I'm at work, and when I get home, this is what I have to do.
Here's a story I'll share with you. So I was doing the musicians for the All That Jazz program, and I had said to Clay T. White, I'd really like to interview the wives and see what their lives were like. So I sat in a room with several of the women that were married to, currently or formerly, to these musicians during the 60s and the 70s. One of the stories that always really hit me was there was a black couple, or I'm trying to think, a black performer, and his family went to go swim in one of the casinos swimming pool, and the manager of whatever casino, I don't recall which one it was, said, you need to get out and we have to drain the pool. Of course, this was before the civil rights era.
Wow.
The wives all collected together and said, absolutely not, absolutely not. And they stood up for that family. And that was one of the most touching things that I had ever heard.
Oh, that gives me chills just to think about it. Because there was a time in Vegas where there was a lot of discrimination.
Sammy Davis Jr. could not go onto the casino floor. He had to leave through the back way while he was performing.
I know.
We've come a very long way.
Oh, we have.
We've come a really long way, and it's nice to see, but I still think we have a long way to go.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We do. But Vegas is a special sort of place. We have to admit that. It is a very special sort of place. I love the desert. I love, when I first came here, I just looked at it as this dry, kind of barren place. And now when I drive through it, and I make a point to do that at least once a month, it's different. It's got a story.
It is. It's its own entity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love, when I drive from here to St. George, Utah, I drive across the desert and up through that Virgin River Gorge and then right on into St. George. And it's just a time for me in the car just to sort of meditate and think about things. I don't let anybody go with me because I want to think about those
No, it's
things.
a beautiful place. The desert is a beautiful place. I just needed more water and more green stuff.
Yeah. So when you decided to do this, was it something you just kind of fell into, or did you say, I really want to go out and talk to people and find out what makes them tick?
Mary Pilevsky was one of our visiting professors while I was doing my undergraduate work. Mary Pilevsky wrote a book, Atomic, I'm sorry, Mary, I can't remember the title, but she did an oral history. Her father worked at the Nevada test site. And so I want to say it's Atomic Memories, but I know I have it incorrectly. But when she taught that class, just like that. Just like when I was a little girl, 9 years old, I was watching that old television movie, Born Free.
Oh, I love that.
And I knew right then and there, when I grow up, I'm going to go work with animals, and I did it. It was something that when a passion clicks inside of your brain, nothing can stop you to do it. And just hearing other people's stories, I'm so touched by what they'll share with me.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. And I'm kind of stuck for how to say this question. I loved being in Africa because I went out in the wild every weekend and just was there with the animals and all. Now, when you were working with these animals over in California, were they African animals? Were they American animals? Were they, what kind of, I mean, it's funny to say, what kind of animals were they?
As a lover of the movie Wizard of Oz, they were lions and tigers and everything. It was just the most amazing experience. I will tell you the name of the college. It's Moore Park College, because in 1974 it opened up as a college hands-on working with exotic animals, and they had a compound. You had to still go to the college and take regular classes, but then you got to be hands-on working. So I started there in 1977, graduated in 79, 2.5 years of working with these animals, and I learned so much. Not only did I grow up, I had just come out of high school, and I grew up so much because it was hard work, but yeah, elephants, camels, llamas, monkeys, primates are one of my passions. I love primates.
Yeah. You want to go off with Jane Goodall, and
I was gonna go work with Jane Goodall
and see the gorillas. Yeah, they're quite an experience. I had an opportunity to have years ago Bobby Barancini on my show, and he brought the chimpanzees and
he had orangutans.
Orangutans, that's right. They were big, and the one just wouldn't turn loose in my hand, and it kept sticking my hand in his mouth, and I was like, you know, I was afraid he was going to bite me, but he didn't. He just wanted to love on me, which was really quite a wonderful experience.
They're amazing. Yeah, animals are just quite amazing. And again, I don't know if I mentioned it, but they saved the life of a lonely little girl. You know, I used to go out into the woods. I was so worried in the wintertime. Oh, how are the animals going to survive in the snow? I used to bring home baby rabbits that I found in the nest because I thought their mommy abandoned them.
Oh.
Then I realized, no, I have to leave them alone.
You have to put them back, huh?
I had to leave them alone.
Well, that brings up a question. When you take a baby rabbit out of the nest and then you take it back, does the mama accept it?
I don't know, because I don't recall taking them back. I think I was still too little to really understand the process. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I just wondered.
I know now not to do that.
Oh, good. Okay, so we won't find you out taking any babies out of anything. Yeah. I enjoy listening to you because you're just fascinating. You're really fascinating. So your next book, the one about your life, what are you going to call that?
Well, okay. So my first one, I was thinking of calling it Nuclear Family, because I wanted it to be a play on words of the happy beaver cleaver type of family. And I wanted to talk about how when a tragedy hits anybody, it reverberates for the generations. And so I kind of had that in my mind. And I think that is a book that I'll probably write chronicling not only mine, but my 3 older brothers' journey through this experience. So then I think the title was going to be It Happened One Night, because it was something that happened one night, when I was a baby, that just disintegrated and shattered our whole family.
And changed everything.
Yeah. So it happened one night. So those are the working titles.
That's a good title. I like that.
Thank you.
I like that.
It could have also been The Blue Suitcase. Because as I started gathering the information, documents, interviews, photographs, newspaper articles, I didn't have a filing system back then, so I kept stuffing a blue suitcase with everything that I had discovered. It now is in a nice filing system, but it started out in a blue suitcase. I used to say my parents live in a blue suitcase.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
That really is. That really is sweet. Well, it's really wonderful to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much.
And I've learned so much. I'm so delighted to have you here and exposing me to a whole new avenue of what people do in order to get their memories out. And I just can't encourage people enough to get in touch with you and have
thank you.
Have you interview them and put their memoirs down, because the family wants to have those things.
Do.
I heard my mother tell stories all my life, and they were wonderful stories. And I just want to share those with people, and I don't remember exactly how they were. So I want those stories.
So I would encourage people to sit with their loved ones, ask them questions, take their phone, record it if the person will do it. Here's something that I did early on, because again, I didn't have those memories of childhood myself. I have 4 grandchildren. On the day each one of them is born, I buy a journal and I write little moments of their life, because from the age of, well, like what, 1 to 8, you don't know anything. And so I will share the good and the bad. You know, I will tell them what their life was like, where they lived, and just kind of share it. And I just think what a treasure that is.
It is a treasure.
Yeah.
What a wonderful thing for you to do.
I would encourage anybody to do it, because you know what, and just write your memories down.
Oh, yeah.
It's so cathartic, it really is.
Well, I know when I went to live in Africa, no one said to me, journal, and I didn't, and I didn't journal. And then I came home and I kept thinking, I wish I'd have written every day down,
Right.
because living in South Africa at the end of apartheid was an incredible experience.
Oh, gosh.
And I can recall, I can pull things up, but not like if I had had that journal. So I love the fact that you are writing the things for the children, so that when they get older they can see that, and then they'll probably pick up the habit themselves.
I don't know, kids don't seem to want to write anything anymore. In fact, I can't sit and write a full journal entry now, so I have my day planner, and in my day planner I make sure I write, I'll be saying, interviewed by Judy on what's your story, and that will trigger me 20 years from now, if I'm so lucky, that I was here with you that day.
Yeah.
And I'm going to suggest something, let me be the interviewer sometime and do what's your story.
I'd love to do that.
I'd love to do that.
That would be really
Yeah.
fun. You promise you'll come back and
I
do it?
promise.
I know some people who have asked me, you know, they'd like to hear my story, so I would love to do that. That would be great.
All right.
Okay.
It's a
Well,
date.
would you tell our viewers where they can reach you and how they can get in touch, just in case they would like to do this?
Well, I have a website, and it's lisagioiaacres.com, and I can be contacted through the website. And I would love to do anybody's story that would be interested in sharing it. I'd love that. But at lisagioiaacres.com. It's very difficult to get the Gioia part of the
Is
name
it spelled
down.
correctly? Yes. Yeah. How do you spell it?
It's Gioia, a consonant and 4 vowels, and then another ACRES.
Is it hyphenated?
No, well, in my legal name it is, but not on the website.
Okay,
It's just one
good.
word, lisagioiaacres.com.
Wonderful.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome, because I think people are going to want to contact you,
Oh, that would be
and
great.
it would be fabulous to have you do a story. I'm excited now. I want to tell you my story. That would be wonderful.
Yes. Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
When I was teaching the College of Southern Nevada, one of my classes was Nevada history, and I had my students. They needed, I had a list of individuals, especially from that Las Vegas media group, and each student had to pick one of them. They had to interview them, then they had to do a presentation and write a paper. They were so frightened, young college
Yes.
students. They said it was the most exciting experience they had, and during the presentation, we had the news come and do a little story on it, and the student would stand up and introduce their person and talk about their life story. And I have all of that stuff. If anybody's interested in those stories, I have all of them.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I think for a student to go and do that, it helps them to have more confidence and to
Yes.
reach out and feel like, yeah, I can do this.
And think of the connection, the young and the older.
Yeah.
It was great. It was one of the most rewarding things I've ever done.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here
Thank you
today.
so
It's
much.
been fun. I've loved every minute of it. And thank you for joining us. And we hope that you'll come back and visit us again very soon.
Well, I got an interview to do.
Yeah, I'll come back and visit when she does an interview of moi. Okay, thank you for being
Thank
here
you.
today. We'll
Thank
see
you
you
so
soon.
much.